Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba. Here are stories making the headlines beyond the continent. We begin with the Middle East conflict, where the Lebanese Red Cross says 18 people have died in a strike on North Lebanon on Monday. The Israeli raid on Aitor, a village in the Christian-majority Zagata district far from Hezbollah strongholds, also wounded 4 people. So far, Israeli strikes have mainly been concentrated in predominantly Shia areas, where Hezbollah built its power base in a state racked by sectarianism. After almost a year of cross-border fire war, the Gaza war, Israel on September 23rd launched an intense air campaign mainly targeting Hezbollah's south and east Lebanon strongholds, as well as Beirut's southern suburbs. At least 4 soldiers have been killed and 58 others injured in Hezbollah strike that hit an army base in northern Israel. According to the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, about 7 soldiers were injured in Golani Brigade training base south of Haifa. Israel's army chief, Herzi Halevi, while visiting the base, said the drone strikes was difficult and painful. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday vowed to strike Hezbollah without mercy following a deadly drone strike at a military base in Israel on Sunday. Netanyahu, while visiting the military base, said Israel will continue to mercilessly strike Hezbollah in all parts of Lebanon, including Beirut.
ואני רוצה להבהיר, אנחנו נמשיך להכות בחיזבאללה ללא רחם, בכל חלקי לבנון, גם בביירות. הכל לפי שיקולים מבצעיים. הוכחנו זאת בתקופה האחרונה, ונמשיך להוכיח זאת גם בימים הקרובים.
In the meantime, the United Nations stressed on Monday that urgent need for ceasefires in both Lebanon and Gaza to avert a broader regional conflict with ramifications for the whole world. The UN Refugee Chief, Filippo Grandi, while speaking at the start of the UNHCR Refugee Agency's annual Executive Committee meeting in Geneva, said a ceasefire sustained by meaningful peace process is the only way to break the cycle of violence. His comments came amid escalating Israeli attacks targeting Hezbollah militants in Lebanon, where more than 1,300 people have been killed and 1 million displaced since late September. Hezbollah started firing into northern Israel a year ago to support Hamas following its deadly October 7 attacks that sparked devastating war in Gaza.
A year of loss and of grief, without doubt, as we continue to witness conflict, violence, and abuses that displace millions. Fed by the belief, no, the terrible lie that the path to peace is found through war. A ceasefire for Lebanon, but also, as is desperately needed in Gaza, a ceasefire that is sustained by a meaningful peace process, difficult as it may be. This is the only way to break the cycle of violence, of hatred, and of misery. A ceasefire that would also allow the displaced of this conflict in Lebanon and in northern Israel to return home. A ceasefire which would stem the tide to a major regional war with global...
To talk about, updates on the Middle East conflict is our senior international correspondent, Adeshewa Josh. Adeshewa, what more can you tell us about the conflicts at this time?
Adebola, it's been a day of rage in the region, as you have been reporting all day. Dozens of civilians caught in the crossfire, both in Lebanon and in Gaza. Even the symbolic Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is very sacred to folks of the Muslim faith, was attacked today by Israeli fighter jets, and 4 Palestinians were killed. These people were sheltering somewhere around the Al-Aqsa Mosque. We also saw Israel announce that it had killed a major Hamas commander, the guy who planned the drones and paraglides that killed hundreds of Israelis attending that musical concert on October 7th. Israel also announced that it will continue its invasion of Lebanon. You heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu there saying that Israel will hit all parts of Lebanon. That's a direct contrast to the announcement that we heard from Israel a couple of weeks ago saying that the operation in Lebanon will be limited in scope and that it will be targeted. Now we're hearing that Israel will attack all parts of Lebanon, including the capital, Beirut. And this was in response to Hezbollah's attack on a Israeli military base overnight that killed 4 Israeli soldiers. Now, we've also been hearing reports of Israel attacking United Nations peacekeeping mission in Lebanon, something that has drawn stern condemnation from its Western allies, well, some of its Western allies, Israel, France, Italy, Britain, Germany, but not the United States. Right now, we know that the death toll is now over 42,000 people in Gaza. More than 2,000 people have been killed in Lebanon, and more than 10,000 have been wounded. And the number continues to rise.
Well, we understand that the U.S. is sending troops to Israel along with an advanced U.S. anti-missile system. How significant is this move?
Well, it's really significant indeed, Adebola. And about 100 U.S. troops have been deployed to Israel to help operate the battery of an advanced missile defense system called THAAD. THAAD is an acronym for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, which indeed is capable of intercepting ballistic missiles of up to 150 to 200 kilometers away. And just to put that in perspective, that's about a distance of Lagos to Ibadan for our local viewers. Lagos to Ibadan, that's a long distance. This particular THAAD defense system, it has a very high success rate. This deployment is seen as unusual because it is highly unusual for the United States to deploy its troops on the ground to Israel. But Pentagon has justified it, saying that that particular defense system needs at least 100 troops to operate its battery. Plus, we are also doing it to help Israel defend itself. A lot of experts are saying this is in anticipation of an attack from Iran and the highly likely event that Israel retaliates the October 1st attack on it by Iran. So now it is indeed the first lethal sign in the region of what could possibly be coming in the next couple of days, in fact, hours, or even months. We do not know what direction this is going to go yet. But Iran's foreign minister did say that the United States has basically made a mistake by deploying that defense system to Israel, as well as allowing its troops to go and operate it there. We do know that these rhetorics have been going on for a couple of weeks, but it is just very hard to imagine what new level of destruction and pain beyond what you've seen in the last 1 year that could possibly be done when Israel, or shall I say, if Israel and Iran face off in any kind of missile attack.
Well, fingers crossed. We'll see how things pan out, and we'll keep in touch with you for more context on this. Thank you so much, Adeshewa Josh, our senior international correspondent there.
My pleasure.
And still in the Middle East, the United Nations says the campaign to give hundreds of thousands of children in war-stricken Gaza the necessary second dose of polio vaccine will be more complicated than the first round. The United Nations Agency for Health and Children said they were gearing up to start providing follow-up doses to some 591,700 children under the age of 10 across Gaza from Monday. The vaccination campaign began after the first confirmed polio case in 25 years was reported in the besieged Gaza Strip.
هنا لحملة التطعيم في المرة الثانية من لقد علمنا ذلك من خلال وسائل الإعلام ورسائل توجهت لنا من وزارة الصحة الفلسطينية على جوالاتنا للحث على تطعيم الأطفال لمدى أهمية تطعيم هذا للطفل والأمراض المعلومة أثناء الحرب، فيجب على كل ولي أمر أن يهتم بأطفال.
بالنسبة للمرحلة الثانية هذه جرعة معززة لتطعيم ضد فيروس شلل الأطفال بالإضافة اللي هو لفيتامين A. طبعا اليوم هو أول يوم احنا شغالين في الحملة، في إقبال كويس، الناس مقتنعة في التطعيم، وبعدين في اللي هو الفيتامين A اللي هو المقوي لجهاز المناعة.
طبعا الحرب كانت سبب نزوح الناس من بيوتهم ووجودهم في الخيام وعدم وجود بنية تحتية موجودة والمية المجاري ومية البنية التحتية هذه المهدمة طبعا حتكون سبب في انتشار.
We go on a short break. When we return, China, Russia pledge to strengthen military cooperation. These are more story. When we return, stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The news continues in America, where former U.S. President Bill Clinton says U.S. Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate in the forthcoming election will make a fine president. Clinton made this known as he campaigned for Harris in the swing state of Georgia.
One guy with a MAGA cap asked to take a picture because I believe, based on my personal knowledge of the job and the candidates, that Kamala Harris will be a fine president, will make a huge difference. It is literally possible that the whole election could be decided here. That's right. It is possible. Yes, it is. There are 7 states where the election is too close to call. We could win them all.
When I head to Europe, where the European Union says member states have an obligation to provide access to the asylum procedure. And this comes after Poland's Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, said he planned to partially suspend asylum rights for irregular migrants. Tusk also accused human traffickers in countries such as Russia and Belarus of abusing the system.
Belarus. So it is important and imperative that the Union is protecting the external borders, and in particular from Russia and Belarus, both countries that have put in the past 3 years a lot of pressure on the external borders. And this is something that is undermining the security of the EU member states and of the Union as a whole. At the same time, member states have international and EU obligations, including the obligation to provide access to the asylum procedure. We're in touch with the Polish authorities on the announcements and also to see the exact form this will take.
The Nobel Peace Prize in Economics has been awarded to Turkish-American Daron Acemoglu and British-Americans Simon Johnson and James Robinson for research into wealth inequality between nations. Acemoglu and Johnson are professors at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, while Robinson is a professor at the University of Chicago.
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award Sveriges Riksbanksprize in Economic Sciences in memory of Alfred Nobel for 2024 to Daron Acemoglu, MIT, Cambridge, USA, Simon Johnson, MIT, Cambridge, USA, and James Robinson, University of Chicago, USA, for studies of how...
Barcelona receives an average of 170,000 visitors per day, attracted to its architecture, museums, and beaches. According to municipal figures, tourism accounts for roughly 13.5% of the city's gross domestic product. However, records show that this is now the third most worrying problem for Barcelona's 1.6 million residents as housing costs increase and public spaces have become overwhelmed, mirroring a trend seen in other tourism hotspots. Thousands of people marched through the street of Barcelona on Sunday to protest against the city's tourism-centric economic model, as well as America's cup-selling competition it is hosting this year.
We saw a lot of tourists, and we were thinking, I'm not sure if I would like to raise my children in a city with so much tourism. It's a beautiful...
Ese es el problema. Que claro, hay que parar esto porque este hombre está ganando 9.000 al mes con los turistas, cuando saca 1.000 con nosotros. Entonces, ¿cómo no va a querer que nos vayamos? Ese es el problema, da igual que hagan fiestas que no. El problema es, no podemos dejar que la gente haga lo que quiera con las casas, con las propiedades, ¿sabes?
Llega la crisis del COVID, insisto, durísima, pero se recupera esto, ¿no? Y hay un alivio y una alegría compartida de la gente al poder disfrutar y compartir de esos espacios y costumbres. ¿Qué sucede? Que entre tanto la industria...
A Russian court on Monday sentenced a French researcher to 3 years in a penal colony after finding him guilty of breaching a foreign agent law. The trial of Laurent Vanatia, who works for a Swiss conflict mediation NGO, comes amid tensions between Russia and the West over the Ukraine war. The 48-year-old was arrested in Moscow in June and charged with gathering information on Russia's military without being registered as a foreign agent.
Сторона защиты считает приговор излишне суровым и, конечно же, будет обжаловать его в установленном законом апелляционном порядке. Спасибо.
Отреагировал достаточно, так сказать, сдержанно, без эмоций. Он посчитал нужным и важным признать своевременно. Он признал, рассчитывая на смягчение, получили то, что получили. Будем обжаловать.
In Asia, the Chinese and Russian defense ministers pledged on Monday to deepen cooperation between their two countries' militaries as they met in Beijing. Now, Moscow and Beijing have forged closer ties since Russia invaded neighboring Ukraine in February 2022, an alliance that has drawn anxiety in the West as both countries seek to expand their global influence. China and Russia declared a no-limits partnership shortly before Moscow launched its attack on Ukraine and have carried out a series of military drills together since. And Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense has released footage showing air defense launchers, military vehicles, and a naval vessel being maneuvered into position. And this comes as response to China's drills around the island, representing its fourth round of large-scale war games in just over 2 years. Meanwhile, Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te and Joseph Wu, Secretary General of the National Security Council, have condemned the drills.
要说明，共军这种非理性的挑衅军演，不但会危及台海的安全情势，无益于两岸关系的良性发展，更严重地破坏印太区域的安全情势，威胁以规则为基础的国际秩序。国防部已经通令三军各部队，依国军经常战备时期突发状况处置规定，检讨适切兵力应处，情监侦系统严密掌握中共火箭军部队等动态，各外离岛防区提高警觉，任务机、任务舰确依部班的接战规则来应对敌。
South Korea's military said on Monday it was fully ready to respond after North Korea ordered troops on the border to prepare to fire in a dispute over drone fights in Pyongyang. The North has accused Seoul of flying drones over its capital to drop propaganda leaflets filled with what it described as inflammatory rumors and rubbish. Seoul's military has denied it was behind the fight. However, activist groups in South have been known to send propaganda and prohibited materials northwards, typically by balloon. Late on Sunday, the North claimed that it would consider it a declaration of war if another drone was detected.
우리가 그 쓰레기 자체를 보낸다는 것은 좀 비열한 거죠. 이왕이면은 서로 남북이 좋은 뜻에서 보낸 거는 좋은데 쓰레기를 보내갖고 국민들한테 피해를 준다는 것은 있어서는 안 되지 않느냐 생각을 합니다.
한국인으로서 당연히 좀 안타까운 심정이고요. 조금 더 우리가 활발하게 교류가 좀 이어져서 좀 더 회복이 되었으면 좋겠는 마음입니다.
쓰레기 풍선 던지는 거요. 우리 북한이 우리 남한을 쓰레기만도 못하다 인정하는 것 같습니다.
In recent years, arrests for blasphemy committed online or in WhatsApp groups have exploded in Muslim-majority Pakistan. This offense carries the death sentence, and even unconfirmed accusations can spark public outrage and lead to lynching. Blasphemy has become a rousing charge in Pakistan after the laws were ramped up in the 1980s when dictator Zia-ul-Haq campaigned to Islamicize society. An official involved in prosecuting the cases claims that not a single person arrested was trapped in any manner.
हमारी फैमिली इस केस से लेकर अभी तक जो है बिल्कुल स्कैटर्ड हो चुकी है और सिर्फ हमारी फैमिली नहीं बल्कि 450 लोगों की फैमिलीज़ और ये फैमिलीज़ भी वो हैं जो हाईली क्वालिफाइड बच्चों की फैमिलीज़ हैं यानी वो ऐसे बच्चे नहीं हैं कि जिन्हें सेंस ना हो शाऊर ना हो समझ ना हो दे न्यू एवरीथिंग उनको मामले की नज़ाकत का सब मालूम था बट ये कि उनको ट्रैप किया गया हनी ट्रैप किया गया
ये हमारे माशरे में एक सेंसिटिव इशू है बट चूँकि मुतासरीन आए हैं हमारे पास हम उनका मुकदमा अदालत में लेके गए हैं और एक फेयर ट्रायल अपॉर्चुनिटी उन्हें मिलनी चाहिए और बुनियादी तौर पे स्पेशल ब्रांच की रिपोर्ट है जो कहती है कि इसके ऊपर शफाफ तहकीकात होनी चाहिए और हम उसी रिपोर्ट के ऊपर रिलाई कर रहे हैं कि वफाकी हुकूमत इस पर तहकीकाती कमीशन तश्कील दे और ताकि जो तमाम हक़ाइक़ हैं वो सामने आ सके।
ये किसी रहम के लायक नहीं है जो ब्लास्फेमी की हुई लेकिन हम फिर एक रहम कर रहे थे कि हमने आज तक इनके कुछ नहीं बताया किसी को भी लेकिन ये चाहते हैं कि इनका हम सब कुछ बताएं ताकि लोग इनके पूरे खानदान।
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.